And I want to turn from there to another issue of public concern, which is the capital's pollution woes. And indeed, pollution woes across the country this winter that in several parts show no signs of easing. A latest analysis has shown that the national capital's toxic air is actually of its own making and cannot be attributed, as it often is, to stubble burning. A new analysis by India's leading environmental NGO, the Centre for Science and Environment, has revealed that the biggest contributions to Delhi's air pollution are vehicular emissions, not stubble fires this year. The think tank's report highlights that despite farm fires being at a multi-year low, the capital's air still remains in the very poor or even severe category. The level of fine pollutants has shown no improvement since 2022, indicating that pollution control measures being implemented by government agencies are not effective on the ground. Vehicular emissions in particular are the ones that are spiking, and this spike is what is causing what is being described as a toxic cocktail. What does this really mean? Are we unfairly targeting the farmers for stubble burning? Is the real crisis vehicular emissions when it comes to pollution? Sunita Narain, Director CSE, which has authored that report, joins me. Sunita, it's been widely believed even in the past that vehicular emissions account for about 40% of pollution. Are you saying that could be an even higher number? And stubble burning was seen to account for about 17%. Is that even less if I were to put it in percentage terms?
So Rajdeep, that's not the percentage. The fact is stubble burning was never on an average 17%.
In this season.
Yeah, in this season, it tips us over. And broadly, what we have understood is there are certain days of winter when, in the past, when the stubble burning could have contributed up to 25 to 30%. And on an average, as you said, it could be up to 17% in this 1 month of stubble burning period. What we have found this year, and that should both worry us, but also it gives us a sense of there is one less thing to worry about, which is the farm fire, which we were not being able to combat, is that this year, the pollution from farm fires, partly also because, Rajdeep, as you know, Punjab has been under flood. There has been huge damage to the crop. And as a result of it, the farm fire contribution to Delhi, according to government's own data, we have only analyzed the data from the Ministry of Earth Sciences. So this is not our data. Their own data shows that on an average, it has been less than 5%. And only on 2 days did it go up to about 15%. The rest, but the worry part of it is that pollution remained very high, and you have done shows on it. We have suffered it. We cannot breathe in Delhi today, and the entire period pollution has remained high. Now, this tells us that winter is bad, weather turns adverse. We know the sources of pollution remain the same. And between vehicles, between industrial pollution, between waste burning, these are local sources, and we need to deal with them fast, at an emergency level and at scale. The problem today is the lack of scale. It is not about not knowing the source. It is about the scale of action that is needed.
So let's focus on that. On one of the critical areas that your report points out, vehicular pollution, which suggests that therefore the air quality remains bad right around the year, certainly higher than it acceptable because of vehicular pollution along with dust. How do you tackle that on scale?
So what our report also shows us that there is a direct correlation between congestion, between pollution, between vehicular movement, and particularly NO2 levels, nitrogen dioxide levels, which are also very elevated. We also find that carbon monoxide levels are very high. Now, this means that we need to deal with vehicular pollution and we need to make different categories of it. So how do vehicles pollute? Vehicles pollute by the by the kilometers they travel and by the emission standards that are there. Now, if you look at private cars, we are adding 500 new cars into Delhi a day. Now, this is data for Delhi registration only. If you take all of NCR, it would be much higher. We're adding 1,500 new two-wheelers a day. Now, it's not possible to say people should get off their cars, get off their two-wheelers when we don't have adequate public transport. So you need to upscale public transport at a scale that we have never seen. But we need clean public transport. If you remember, Rajdeep, you were very much doing shows at that time when we moved towards CNG in Delhi. We moved all buses, all diesel buses in 1 year to compressed natural gas. We moved all auto rickshaws to compressed natural gas. The scale of it, 100,000 vehicles moved to CNG. That's the scaling we need. Now, if we are talking about public transport, we need to be able to scale it at that level. Today, we are adding a few electric buses, which is great, but ridership in buses is going down. Because there is so much congestion on the road that buses are stuck in traffic, they become unreliable, they have breakdowns, and as a result of it, ridership is down. So that's one big part of the agenda. And every time it gets put off saying, oh, this is a long-term agenda. But it's time we started a real solid upgradation of public transport. But over and above that, we need two other parts of that agenda. We need trucks, which are really old trucks. We need to make sure that we can move them to better quality trucks today, because BS6 trucks today are much lower in terms of emissions. But you cannot do this one or two. You need a scheme like CNG when you replaced all auto rickshaws. You need to incentivize this scrappage program. Then you need your autos, your taxis, which travel the maximum kilometers, 200 kilometers a day, to completely electrify. But again, you need to do that super fast, not one here, one there. You need to do it. And with this, you need to make sure you have car restraint measures, which is high parking. But you can't do that till you provide people an alternative. You have to get us to move people and not vehicles. It's an agenda that will not go away. And be very clear, Rajdeep, we're all stuck in traffic. And now we're not just stuck in traffic, we're also breathing foul air. And no amount of air purifiers is going to make us healthy.
Those are very strong words. What we need, therefore, is an urgent and scaled up plan to control vehicular pollution in particular at the very earliest. Does anyone have the political will to do that is a big question, or the appetite to do that. Parliament discusses a range of other issues. Why can't they devote 10 hours to air pollution as well? If you can discuss Vande Mataram on its 150th anniversary, why not, for God's sake, discuss something for today, which is air pollution, and find solutions and come with a consensus and a plan of action. Not just discuss it, but a plan of action. And implement that plan. I take your point. Implement that plan of action. Sunita, Narain, for sharing details of that report. Appreciate you joining me here in our continuing focus on the air emergency.